There we go. Okay.
Good.
All right. Whew.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Whew. What is my intro going to be? There's no intro for this, I guess. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm your host, Josh, aka Jam Moore. Welcome to another installment of Jam Moore Interviews. Today, I'm beyond excited to be bringing on my next guest, Bruce Thomas, who is the voice of Russell Adler in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Atrocitus in Green Lantern Emerald Knight, Darkseid and General Zod in Justice League Gods and Monsters, the Zod in Justice League War. He does the mocap for Master Chief, including the new Halo Infinite. He's an amazingly talented and humble actor and person. Please give it up for my amazing guest, Bruce Thomas. Welcome to another installment. Thank you so much for joining me today, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. That's I'm exhausted just after the intro. I appreciate that.
but yeah, just to continue going on, I'm a huge fan of your work. Call of Duty is awesome. You did a great job in that, and just studying your roles and studying who you are has just been really awesome. Getting to see all the cool stuff you're in and the cool stuff you're doing. So I'm just really glad to be bringing you on, and I hope to make this an enjoyable experience for you. So yeah.
Oh, likewise. I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much, man.
Absolutely, anytime. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate you looking at all the stuff I've done. I really appreciate you doing, bending over backwards to do that. It's really, it says a lot about you too. So appreciate it.
I would say I've done at least 2 to 3 hours of research on just you in general. I do that for every guest. Like I spend at least 3 to 4 hours, sometimes even 6, depending on the person I'm speaking to. Just like solely watching interviews, reading articles they've done, looking at their roles, making sure I ask good questions, making sure that I don't ask stuff they've been asked before, because I know you guys are probably tired of asking the same BS all the time. So I want to make it. I just want to make it really different. That's my main goal of these, just making it different.
And there's a lot of us that have, let's be honest, like hundreds of credits, and so
sometimes because my next person I'm bringing on is Ben Diskin, who's done like over like 700 roles, and I had to like look at each individual role, and it was just my phone crashed when I was like scrolling through. My phone like crashed and like restarted me at the back at the top, and I said, "What? No, take me back to where I was."
No!
Because I couldn't reach that all right.
Holy smokes, man!
Yeah, it's crazy, but with you looking at your stuff, thankfully my phone wanted to work, did not crash, so it was really easy to look through all
No, mine's pretty doable.
Yes, it is, thankfully. So but of course I have my questions, but you're never really asked the guest, like, what's on their mind, what are they thinking about? So I just want to give this just a cool little icebreaker between us, even though we've kind of done it, is what's on your mind? Is there a show you just watched that you want to talk about? Are you excited for anything? This is the time where you can talk about literally anything. You want to get something off your chest, you want to recommend a book, a show, anything at all, the floor is yours.
Oh my God, that's just too wide open a question. There's too many things going on. I do watch a lot of series right now. The one I just finished was The Morning Show. It's my favorite show on television. I think the writing is brilliant, and I love all those performers to death. And they're just all just kicking it. Just kicking ass. So that's really exciting. I just love watching anybody do good work, no matter what it is. Whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's television, films, good work just jumps out at me, and I just eat it up. I love it.
Absolutely, I'm the same way too. Like as someone who is an artist and is doing their best to break it into the industry, just watching people like yourself or just tons of voice actors I look up to, and just like watching shows, I just love when you can tell they have passion, or they really had fun doing that. I just love looking at that, whether it be, like you said, even fan art. I mean, have you seen some of the fan art for even like characters like Adler? It's like kick ass, man. Like, oh my God.
It really is. I get it every day, almost every day, and I try to put it on my story as much as possible on Instagram, because these fans are in it to win it. They're in it. They love the show. They love apparently love the character enough to spend all of that time and energy and love putting together something visually that it comes from their own expression. And so I have to honor that and put it out there.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I really wish actors would do that more. I mean, I know sometimes when you're like so busy or like you've done a ton of stuff, it's kind of like hard to even like keep up with everything because you're probably getting like tagged in hundreds and hundreds of things. So it's kind of hard to share. But I think it's so awesome when actors of the characters like share like fan art or like retweet a picture like, yo, look at this, like this. It's just really cool because, you know, art is a hard thing. Like making fan art is crazy. That's why people do commissions, because like you're spending like, God, like probably like 6 hours or more just making one single piece of art. Because I've seen some of the ways that people make art. They take renders of maybe like your face and put it on a computer and try to like edit it, and it's just like so cool watching. It's a lot of work, but it's so cool, the final product.
Right, and actually, when you made me think of this one, that one right there is a piece of fan art. It's done on acrylic, and I just screwed myself because I can't remember what his name is that did that. He lives in Wisconsin, and I can put it on my Instagram later and post it. But that's an acrylic painting that he sent me for free, and that just blew my mind too. All that energy and work that he put into it, and I should remember his name, and I suck for not. But
oh no, it's all right. So I forget my own name sometimes, so it's all good. My first question to you is, what is one childhood experience that you wish every child could have experienced?
I guess the biggest one I can think of right off the top of my head is living on a farm. I grew up on a farm. And so, and we were fortunate to we were working class farm. You know, we weren't money farmers. We were blue collar. I was on the tractor dusk till dawn when I was a teen. But we did have a couple hundred acres. We were fortunate to have a couple hundred acres to do the farming. And in the middle of it were this swath of about 40, 50, 60 acres. I can't recall exactly how many, but there was a river that ran through it. And so it was woods and river. And I used to, when I wasn't on the tractor, I would just go on hikes back there and by myself. And even if it was winter, I would take snowshoes or I had cross-country skis, and so I would ski around the farm for a mile or two. But I would go back in the woods, summer or winter, and I would just let my imagination go insane. Just let it go and listen to the birds, you know, watch the fish in the river, all of that stuff. Make a little campfire for myself, camp out sometimes in the summer overnight. But that allowed me, first of all, I really like being alone. I do. I love my me time. And so I think that's where it started, is to just get out there and let your imagination go crazy. And it did. And I would wish that for anybody. Which brings me to another sort of a rant about cell phones usage today and your generation and anywhere from mine on down. Actually, we're all getting way, way, way too dependent on this little device taking the place of our imagination, and it just kind of makes me sad. Kids should be looking out the window and daydreaming more.
No, I completely agree with that. Even as someone who, you know, is a part of this generation, and people are gonna be like, Josh, you're old. But it's like I feel that way too, because like I spend massive amounts of my time on my phone because I'm like either editing or checking social media like crazy. And that's one thing that I noticed, because I always look at likes and I'm always looking at numbers, trying to make sure and it's just it wears on you. Like I can literally feel it affecting me. And one thing I'm trying to do going into the new year is like trying to lessen my time on my phone. That's why I've got a new job, so I could get like a better computer, so I can edit on my computer more and just do tons of stuff like that. Because it's just like I'm on my phone all the time. I'm always looking, and you know, it's so crazy. I was doing my essay or something, and I put my phone to like, okay, so imagine my computer's right here, my laptop. I'm like typing. And I look at my phone, I just saw the light, and I turned like a squirrel just saw like a nut or something, and it's just like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
It's crazy, and I want more of that. That's why I'm trying to get my brother, because my little brother is like crazy on the phone. I'm trying to get him more into like going outside, and I want to do that more with him and like take him out on his scooter. We bought him a scooter, and he doesn't even use it. Like,
man, some of the best gifts I ever got were like a cardboard box. You just, you know. crawl inside a cardboard box, carve little windows, or just make a little fort out of it. You know, that was the best. That was the best. That was a holiday for us.
Oh no, completely. And just talk about the farms. Since I live in Georgia and there's a lot of farms and stuff everywhere. Every time I go to work in the morning, there's just beautiful place. It's like a mansion. There's like 3 houses, and then there's like so much area there. You see trees, you see rivers and stuff. And I just tell my mom all the time, I'm like, that's where I want to live. I mean, like, I know that's a lot of acres and like you have to cut all that grass and do a lot of work on there, but I want to live on there. I mean, they could swim if they want to. They could fish. They have like a little well. Oh, I'll send you a picture next time I go in the morning. It's so beautiful, and you can see the sun just like gaze upon the land. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
You know, if I have one dream for myself, it's still to go back to that. You know, I've been in a city now between New York and LA. I've been in cities for the last 40 years, and so it's one thing I look forward to in retirement. Actually, is to find a little piece of land somewhere and get back to doing that. I have an uncle who's 90. And he's still lively, ready to go. He gets on his tractor, goes out, tends to the pond on his 15 acres or whatever he's got, and he you know, he's still going. He's still going and loving every second of it.
God bless his heart, man. That's crazy. That's insane. It's always something that, you know, I just want to do when I get older. As I continue to get older, I just want to do something where I'm like that. Like, I'm in my old age, still looking forward to waking up and be like, you know, I get to go to work today, just go at it, because that's the dream. Because a lot of people aren't working their dream. They're working a job they hate. They're working a job that they wish they could quit immediately. And I don't want that for myself. I really don't. Like, I don't want to live that life. I see how that affects just the adults in my life, or just people who are just like, man, I don't want to do this. And I just want to ask, like, why are you doing this? But sometimes you have to, just to meet ends meet, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and you've already got a head start. You've got the hat, so you'll still have that when you get to your farm.
But to go deeper into your childhood, how would you say your childhood has influenced your career choices? Because coming from a farm, just being like this, I don't want to say city boy, but a city boy doing like this acting stuff, how would you say, you know, your childhood has helped influence doing acting?
You know, when I was a kid, I was always the odd kid. Early on, I would always doodle. I would make little artwork. I would just page after doodles, and that was part of my fueling my imagination, or just getting something out. I don't know what it was. I picked up the guitar at 10 years old. I still play guitar. I never took lessons. I just figured out a way for me to do it for myself. Then I got a camera when I was like 14 or 15, and I started taking pictures of my toes and just really weird shit. And my parents were like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And then I would write poetry. I had a girlfriend when I was 17. I started writing her this beautiful poetry, and my mom's sitting next to me on a plane as we were going on a family vacation somewhere, and she's like, "What are you writing? Who are you writing to? What is that? Where did you get that?" Well, that's beautiful, but, you know, who are you? So all of that was happening and going through my head, and I never had anybody in my family that were actors. So that was never on my horizon until I went to college. And, you know, and then opportunities presented themselves, which I spoke about a lot of times, but I finally, something clicked in. I just loved, I got to work on a farm, not farm, I got to work on a film very early when I was 20 years old. And it was a big production. It was David Keith and Heather Locklear was in it, and Drew Barrymore. And so I got to be on that set, just pure accidental awesomeness. I got to be on that set for like 6 weeks, and George C. Scott was in it, and I got to rehearse a scene with him. I mean, I don't even know how many people that are watching know these names, but these are names from my childhood, people that I admired, actors that I admired. And I just fell in love with the circus folk that were part of this movie making process. And I just went, wow, this is where I want to be. I finally found it. And I went straight to New York on a suggestion, got right into class, started doing theater, and then from there, took it there. So, wow. That's a long answer, but.
No, I love that longer answers to simpler questions. Means you're diving deep, ripping it apart, and giving us something, you know. But how long did you live in New York for?
8 years.
Okay, I only ask because I'm from Queens, so I'm originally
I,
from Queens.
yeah,
Yeah.
I lived in Manhattan when it was cheap enough to live there. I always tell people, well, this was in the 80s. So, I mean, you got to, take into account inflation and all that stuff, standard of living increases. But when I left Hell's Kitchen, my apartment was $385 a month. That was in 1989. So it wasn't 1950, but it was, that's the prices back then. It was crazy.
Did you see the article where New York, it's New York and Los Angeles are two of the most expensive cities in the world? Not even just like America, but like the globe. That's crazy. Because my mom wants to move back to New York and stuff, and I mean, I kind of do, kind of don't. I'm mixed. If she moves back to New York, I'm going. But if she doesn't, then whatever. But it's just crazy. She's talking to me about these prices, and I'm like, we can't do that. That's insane.
No, listen, man, it's crazy. It's even crazy for me right now. I mean, I'm in LA, and it's very expensive. It's just, and it seems to get more and more and more so. I have young adult kids, and they're fortunate enough. Well, I say fortunate enough because they don't have to pay rent because they're living with their mom. But, also, unfortunately, they can't afford to go out and have a place of their own yet. And they're in their early to mid-20s. They're in their mid-20s. It's too tough. And they're working,
That's one thing that as someone who wants to get more into voice acting, I know a ton of opportunities are where you're at in California. And that's one thing that I'm taking into account is just standard of living and like inflation and rising prices, because I can't imagine what it's like to live there and like deal with all those prices and deal with all the it's insane to just look at how California is, or even New York, just all those insane prices. Like, you don't see any houses in the 1,000 ranges nowadays. They're in the 2,000s, even more. Jeez, like.
Oh yeah, you're paying that for a one-bedroom apartment.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my goodness.
Yeah. And then but the good news is, you don't have to. We voiceover people now, because of the pandemic, don't really have to worry so much about the traffic unless we choose to. We can do it right here from our homes. And we made it work, and we made it work well. I just did a commercial for Toyota trucks a couple weeks ago, and it's on the air, and it's right from here. I'm looking at my studio right now. But I just, it came right from here and went on the air. So we're able to do that now instead of having to fight this traffic so much every day.
I hear so many stories from actors I've talked to, have said how awful Los Angeles traffic is and how much they hate it. I remember I was talking to Tom Kane, and he was like, he would have to drive to the studios, and he would dread it. He was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he just eventually just decided to start recording from his home and not even go to studios anymore because he hated the traffic so much. And I can relate to that too, because Atlanta traffic, you will be there for at least 2 hours. You're done. You better leave.
Really?
You better leave on the right time. You're going to be stuck there for hours. Atlanta traffic is so bad, especially during that 5 p.m. time where people going to work. It is awful. And so you can ask anyone who lives here, they can attest to that, because I remember talking to my teacher, and she was like, they were planning on going to a vacation, and they were like, they had to leave like an hour or 2 hours before they expected to like get on the road because traffic is so bad. Because you got to add in how much time you're going to, let's say you're going to like Virginia or something. So that's like a 9-hour trip. Then if you leave at the wrong time, you got to add in that traffic. And like I said, that traffic, 2 to 3 hours sometimes. It's insane. So you better leave at the right time or you'll be stuck there for a minute. And that's gas, and then that's on your wears on your tires, and it's a mess. It's a mess.
It reminds me back in the old days, these trailer guys like Tom Kane, but even more so, more these more dedicated, real trailer voices. These movie guys spoke like that. This, coming this Thursday, rated PG. Those guys, in their heyday in the 90s, 80s, 90s. I just had a friend who retired from Universal Studios, and he was a big audio technician guy, and so he worked with all these trailer guys all the time. He just put out trailer after trailer after trailer for movies and TV shows. And these big guys, there was just a handful of names that did all of them, right? they were the voice of God from this era.
People like Dawes Butler.
There was a guy that used to live down Huntington Beach. One of these guys lived in Huntington Beach, which by traffic and by road is at least a couple hours away, at least probably 3 hours away, in worst case scenario. But in this time, when they had him come in and do trailers, he would take a helicopter from his house and land at Universal and just pump out some trailers and fly back home. That's how much money they were making, and that's how busy it was for those guys.
I was about to say, I don't think regular voice.
That was sort of pre home studio, you know.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I don't really expect regular voice actors to be taking helicopters to and from studios.
I wish. Although there is a company right now that's working on, I just read about this the other day, there's a company right now that's making small planes, commuter planes, that are going to be like Ubers in the sky. And they'll seat like 2 or 3 people. And that's their whole goal, is to have it priced like an Uber, so you can fly from one location, go up in the air, and they're electric planes. So you go up in the air, go from one spot to another, then you get out. So you avoid all that traffic, and then you just take a little Uber 5 minutes to your destination if you need to.
That is so cool.
That would be nice. And that's like in the works. That's, all they have to do is, regulate it and give them the thumbs up to get going on it. But then we're going to have traffic in the sky. It's going to be all
my God. Yeah, it's going to be a mess, definitely. How did voice acting get introduced into your life? Because I know we were talking earlier, you went to New York for theater, and you were on screen with, of course, Legally Blonde and stuff like that. So how did this come into your life?
Well, I was doing Cowl XY, that series on ABC Family, and I had always, going back to my childhood once again, another thing I did when I was about 9 years old. My father used to have a reel-to-reel tape machine, and I don't know if people know what that is, but it's just a big box. There are 2 pegs, and there's a plastic reel that contains the film, the tape, and you run it through the thing and up into the other, and it runs. It's a tape machine. So I used to grab a microphone, and I used to pretend I was interviewing people all the time. I didn't know if I wanted to be a journalist or a radio person, or I was using my voice to try to entertain whoever it was, and I don't know what happened to those tapes. They've got to be somewhere at 9 years old. But so that's not really when my career obviously started, but I only say that because there was an innate interest in me for doing this way back then, and then jumped to doing Cowl XY. And somewhere during that series, I thought, you know what? I'm going to explore that again. And so I bought a microphone, and we were up in Vancouver shooting. And so I just got a microphone, and I talked to my agent, and what was it? Oh, I guess I got a specific voiceover agent, and then just started getting auditions, and I just started working at it. And at first you start out and you're kind of nervous, and you can hear it in your voice, and you've got tension in your vocal cords and things like that you have to work all through. But I already had the craft of acting in my body, and so I just sort of applied all those things to work on the microphone and started to develop a craft, which you really, really have to do.
A lot of people, and one thing that I used to get misconstrued was like, oh, voice acting is just like funny voices, and then speaking to people like you guys, they're like, no, you're very wrong. It's not that at all. It's very much acting. Someone said put the voice in parentheses and just focus on the acting, because it's very much honing on the craft of acting. If you can't act, then I don't know what to tell you, because you're not going to make it that far in this industry, because it's not funny voices anymore. In fact, I was speaking to someone, they were like, most of the times auditions just ask for your natural voice. They just want you as a person. So if you can't rely on those cartoony, funny voices, you're done. If you can't act, you're done. Because you need to really focus on that and really honing on that craft, like doing efforts for video games, or really being able to sustain your voice for long periods of time. Because sometimes you're in these recording booths for like 4 hours on video games, or even more, because you go back to back on them. So it is really important that you guys focus on that. If anyone wants to be an actor, just really take acting classes, take improv,
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's the number one advice I would give anybody is become an actor. Make sure you're a strong actor, as strong as you can be. And also, by the way, we're always trying to get better. You know, you never get to a point where, okay, I'm done. No, you're always getting better. And I'm always listening to other performers and oh, wow, listen to what he just did right there, or she just did right there. That's awesome. I'm going to try to employ that into what I do in my own way, you know, kind of shift that into the way I would do it. But I'm always picking up stuff like that from other people, from teachers. I had one voiceover class, and the very first thing the teacher said in the class was, I bet a lot of people say to you, you have a great voice, you should be a voiceover actor. And everybody's going, yeah, that's why I'm here, you know. And he goes, well, forget all that. Voiceover acting is not about your voice at all. It's about what you do with it. And that's the best advice you could ever start with.
No, those definitely.
Now there are people. I have a good friend who's a mimic. He works all the time, and he's very, very good at being funny and coming up. I mean, he can mimic amazing performers, and they're all very different. And he's got a real gift for that. But he's also a strong actor.
Yeah, you can't just do this on impressions alone. I know another person who is really big on impressions, and he was just talking about, you know, this impression doesn't give me the job. Like, I have tons of jobs doing different characters. I don't really get too much doing impressions. Like, someone could do a great Ronald Reagan impression. I mean, unless they're casting Ronald Reagan, that's not going to get you too far in this industry. So,
which we did in Call of Duty, man.
Yeah.
Jeff was great. He was just, oh my God. We were sitting there in the motion capture stage, and I'm sitting right here listening to Ronald Reagan right to my right here. It was just insane. I could have swore it was Ronald Reagan just sitting right there.
Jeff Bergman was insane with that role. He was so good with Ronald. He nailed it to a T. Like you were saying, I thought there was Ronald Reagan there too. It's so cool that people can do impressions like that. I know Jim Meeksman does a great John F. Kennedy impression. He's done it for he did it for X-Men First Class. He did it for a ton of the Call of Duty games prior to Cold War. Yeah. These guys can really do it, and I love it.
Jim's a great guy, and he's also really good at that. I'm glad you brought his name up. He's fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, when you started out voice acting, did you have a goal in your mind, like, oh, I want to be a part of this show, I want to work with this actor, or do you just want to be a main character? Was there anything you were sort of aiming for, or were you just kind of like, I'm here, let's do this acting thing?
Yeah, kind of that. I didn't pigeonhole myself. I was kind of just wide open, again, keeping my mind wide open and ready for whatever came towards me. And also, I just wanted to try and see what I was good at. You have to find out, you sort of have to develop your brand, and you have to discover through accident, hit and miss, hard work, and listening to people that are giving you feedback to zone in on what your brand is going to be and what your pocket is. As a voiceover performer, it can be much different than what you would be cast in on camera. Like, one of my agents first started telling me, I started getting auditions for, as I got older, I turned 50, I think, and I started getting rural guys and cowboys and sort of Sam Elliott kind of guys. And I started doing that, and my agent said, that's your fucking pocket now. Sorry. That's your pocket.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, you're good.
I hope they're, kids may be out here, so I don't want to go there, but that's your pocket. That's gonna be a really good marketing selling point for you. And so, one of the first commercials I did was a Maker's Mark whiskey spot for Justified, for the show Justified. It was a cross promo for that, like, people down in the hollers of Kentucky like to drink Maker's Mark. And that's what it was on the microphone. And I was just like, well, I found something. That's really cool. Now, I would never be cast as that guy on camera, at least yet. I'm starting to get older now, and I start to get more character in the lines in my face. So I could possibly get into that line of work as now that I'm aging, which I'm really looking forward to. But with your voice, you use what's there, right? And you take advantage of it.
I want to talk more about branding, because that's one thing that's very interesting to me, and something that other voice actors have talked about too, is that agencies are really looking for people nowadays who really have this big social media presence, how many followers you have. And followers are really important, which in my opinion sucks a lot, because there are tons of talented people who deserve the work, but just because they don't have like 1 million followers on Instagram or 10K on Instagram or whatever number that these agencies want, they're not going to get the job. Have you noticed that as well? Like, oh, they want you to have like this certain number, or do you feel the pressure of social media weighing on you as an actor? And if so, how are you dealing with that?
I definitely hear it. A lot of people tell me, voiceover directors, casting people, my agents. Well, not so much my agents actually, because I'm working a lot. But that's what I was going to say, is that I hear that pressure all the time. But I don't have numbers like that. I've got 5,000 on Twitter, and I've got not even 4,000 on Instagram. So, and I'm getting big roles, and I'm doing big projects. The last 3 video game things, I played leads in 3 AAA games, and so I don't have that kind of following, and I'm getting work. It's just sad to me that you do have to feel that pressure. Young people have to feel that pressure. I'd say work on your craft more than anything. I mean, you're going to break through. People are going to hear you no matter what your numbers are. If you've got a great craft and a great brand and you're bringing something to the table, that's what's going to get you hired. In fact, I have Jason Spisak, was a friend of mine, who we did Gears Tactics together, and Jason, he tells this story one day when we were just farting around on stage. He said, my agents came to me and said, Jason, you got to get your numbers up. I mean, you're just all forms of social media, you have to boost your numbers. And he said, okay, here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing my social media is a problem. And they said, yeah, it is. And he goes, good, I'm getting rid of all of it. How about they use my resume instead? And he's working all the time.
Speaking of Jason, he wanted me to tell you he says hi and sends you big hugs, because I'm friends with him too, and that's so funny, because I messaged him. He was like, hey, just tell Bruce I said hey, and I hope he's doing well. I was like, oh, I got you. And then I was like, is there any story you want him to tell? And he was like, ask Bruce about Gears of War Tactics, and you just told that story. So I think that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was just a side little reference there, but Gears Tactics, oh, he was great. God, Ukon is this character he plays. It's so Jason. It's just so fun, and he's a comic book actor, and in the best sense of the word. He plays the Joker, he does Ukon, and he just has this energy and vigor of a comedian when he does this stuff, but also another good actor and a powerful and strong performer. So I love what he brings to stuff every time I hear him. We did Batman Hush together. Batman Hush is right behind me too. We did that. Jason's can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. For some reason, something popped up on my screen.
Oh,
my volume went down. That's what happened. Yeah, he's great. Jason's great.
Jason's Joker is really great. I loved it when he did the laugh when, of course, you played Commissioner Gordon respectively in that film, when you punched him in the face and you're like, shut the hell up. And he was just so crazy. Did you guys record that together, or were you guys separated?
No, I actually punched him in the face. That's what happened.
Wow,
he was getting a little out of control. No, we didn't work together. We didn't get to do that side by side, unfortunately.
But no, that is a more testament to both of y'all's acting, because it really felt like you guys were in the room together, going back and forth with that energy when Gordon was like, strip him and put the handcuffs on. He's like, ooh, kinky. And he just started laughing. I feel like you guys were in that scene together. And that's one thing that I find really interesting, is that a lot of the times when you think actors are together, they're separated, like for video games and anime and a lot of these animated features. You guys are like separated onto your own devices, especially with video games, doing like hundreds of lines and different takes and different voices. And it's to go back to what I was saying earlier, efforts, when you're like getting punched in your face, like, ugh! Or punched in the stomach, you're like, ugh! Like stuff like that. Or we're getting shot, you're like, ah, ugh! Stuff like that. You guys have to do that and really bounce off of that energy, and I guess maybe they just don't want another actor getting in the way of that. I don't know. I wish
Well,
you guys could go on.
that's also the beauty of the voice, a good voice director, because they'll, like Wes Gleason that does all those Warner Brothers films. He's so great, and he's so kind, and he's so supportive. God, I just love working with that guy. But he among others, that's their whole job, is to make sure that the continuity is there from actor to actor, and make the scene pop and come alive, and make sure that it's the right answer to whatever is being prodded. Yeah, that's hats off to them too.
You've been Gordon in 3 projects, if I'm correct. Batman Hunt,
Yeah.
Son of Batman, and Batman Bad Blood.
Yeah.
What's it feel like to be the voice of such a iconic character that Gordon is? Because Gordon is very integral to the history of Batman, and some might not know that you've also done the voice of Batman at some point.
That's right. Oh, I did it on camera. Batman, I did on camera. It was for a series of commercials back. Well, it was a while ago now. It was like 20 years ago. But there was a 3 years worth of national network spots where I was Batman. And the whole thing, the whole commercial aspect of it was that the Batmobile had OnStar, that, where you just push to get help. So the Batmobile now has that. But the production was huge. It was from the films. And so I got to wear the Tim Burton, the Michael Keaton suit with the yellow insignia, like from early Michael Keaton suit. Different size, because I'm a bigger guy than Michael Keaton, but they have a whole archive full of different sizes of the same suits. And it's just insane when you go there. But yeah, we did it right on the Warner Brothers lot. And Andrew Davis, who directed The Fugitive, big film director, directed me and us. And yeah, I got to be in the real Batmobile and fire it up, and it was on the back lots of the Warner Brothers lot. It was with all of the people that work on the films. It was a gigantic crew. It was as if we were doing the film. You can go back and look at OnStar Batman. That's all you have to look up, and you'll find a dozen commercials that we did with the Riddler and the real Alfred, Michael Gough from the Keaton films. Before he passed like a year after we did those. The Riddler, Joker, everybody's in those.
That is so cool. I didn't know that was on camera. I thought that was like another voice thing you did for him.
No.
That is so cool. Do you still have like the costume or anything from the set of that?
No, that costume. I remember one night we were working, and the cowl, the headpiece that have to pull over my head, ended up missing, and they had to shut down the entire Warner Brothers lot and check every single car that left. And they told me at that point, just that headpiece alone was $75,000. And that was 20 years ago. So, yeah, to wear the suit, it took like an hour and a half just to get into it. You pull on the bottoms, and then they literally bolt the top to the bottom, these series of bolts that go. So there's a reason that Batman moves like that when he talks to people. He can't move in it, let alone fight people.
That's crazy. Yeah, I've heard about that, where for the Dark Knight films, Christian Bale was like, I can't do this. You guys have to figure out how to make me be able to turn my neck and stuff. And then in The Dark Knight, that's when we could tell there's a big difference between the cowl and Batman Begins in The Dark Knight, because Christian Bale was not having it, and he asked him to fix it. So that's why the suit is so different if you pay close attention to the cowl, because he really needed to get that neck movement. So
I get it 100%, especially if you got to be in it for 3 or 4 months straight. The two fellows who were dressing me and putting me in that suit every day worked on the films, and I think the last person to, no, it wasn't the last person. The person before me was George Clooney. Val Kilmer, they had a story about Val Kilmer, who literally freaked out one day and just took that thing and ripped it off his head. He just destroyed the cowl. He was claustrophobic. He just had too much of it, like Christian Bale, just like, get this effing thing off my head, and destroyed it, getting it off. Just panic attack.
Wow.
But it's insanely all encompassing. But you feel like a real badass when you have that thing on. You look in the mirror, my God, you feel like you could go handle anybody.
I could imagine. It's freaking Batman. You've been in a ton of DC projects. Would you consider yourself a DC fan? Like, do you keep up with the movies and TV shows?
Oh, Batman was my biggest thing when I was a kid. Adam West Batman. So, yeah, you know, I've always been drawn more so to DC than Marvel. I haven't really gotten into the Marvel thing. I did one. I don't think it took off, but yeah, a lot of, like you said, a lot of DC. Naturally go there for some reason.
Like I said, the Zod in Justice League War, the Darkseid and General Zod in Justice League Gods and Monsters, tons of other amazing characters. I mean, freaking Darkseid. That's a huge character. I mean, with the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's huge now in prominence. He's in multiple TV shows, big comic characters. So that must have been amazing to be able to play Darkseid. Do you remember what the audition called for Darkseid? Because I listened to your voice for the character, and it was just really your natural voice, which is awesome because it sounds great. But a lot of the times when they hire like Darkseid actors, it's really like dark and deep and menacing. And
well,
scary.
you know, fortunately I do have, thank you, I have a little bit of that naturally. But Steve Bloom was a great Darkseid too. I mean, I took from him, just steal from everybody. But he's got that natural super grit going, which is really awesome for Darkseid. And also the Gods and Monsters, you briefly brought that up. I got to sit next to Bruce Timm, who was incredible. I was sitting next to him while some other actors were working in the booth, and he's always got napkins or papers or something around and a pencil in his hand. He cannot stop doodling. He's constantly creating these female DC characters, Catwoman, and all these beautiful, God, just Bruce Timm stuff, and it's just constant. And I said to him, "You can't stop, can you?" And he goes, "No, I can't. It's just what I do." And I said, so I actually grabbed one from him one day, and I said, "Could you just sign that?" He said, "Sure." I have it somewhere.
That is so cool.
He's constantly doodling.
Bruce Timm is another major force. He's been in tons of stuff like Batman the Animated Series, Justice League, Batman major Superman Red Son he did. And it's really awesome to know he's still doing, and for you to have been able to experience that creative mind and that creative genius. I'm sure it must have like rubbed off on you when you were doing your roles for Justice League Gods and Monsters.
So I've been all like everybody else. I was just a fan at that point, sitting next to him. But oh my God, I'm sitting next to Bruce Timm.
For Justice League Gods and Monsters, which character did you have most fun voicing, General Zod or Darkseid?
I think Zod, because it was one where there was a lot of sexuality influenced into the writing of that scene with Zod. It was just so obnoxious and arrogant of him to. I mean, I think he actually literally says out loud, "I want to spread my seed throughout the universe." It's just kind of you go, wow. Really? Is this for kids? Who is this for?
Yeah, General Zod is a cool character that is a major Superman villain that I wish I got more time, more presence. But of course, he got killed in the live-action movie. Which project, DC-wise, would you say has had the biggest influence on your career?
I don't know if it was any one project. Got a lot of
most fun you've had, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I'm going to go back to people that work on it. That's always what I take from every project, more so than the project. I think relationships that we develop in this industry is just, especially in this part of showbiz, voiceover world, is just, I'm in love with it because people are so supportive and so happy to be there. There's no egos for the most part. You know, there's always occasional exception, but very, very rare in this part of the business. And who set the stage for that back in the day when I started DC, back when I did Atrocitus, actually. You brought Atrocitus up. When I did Green Lantern, that was very early on, and I had done something, and who I'm speaking of is the voice director, Andrea Romano. She was a legend, and she's now retired, and we miss her dearly. And she single-handedly brought me into that fold. I had done something small with her prior to that, like a year prior. And I just decided, and she was so kind. And like every session you start off, she said, let's play. Let's just play. And then when you leave the session, she goes, come back and play with us sometime. And that's the way she was. I did that little minor role with her. And then about a year later, after I'd started really focusing on voice work, I decided to email her out of the blue. And I just said, you know, it's me, it's Bruce Thomas. I don't know if you remember me or not. And she immediately emailed me back and said, Bruce, I was just thinking about you. You want to do this role? There's a role that I was just thinking about you for. Come on in. And she never made me audition for anything. She would always just call me out of the blue and say, I want you to come play with us, and here's what I want you to do. I want your version of this. And it was just wonderful. It was just, how often do actors get that anymore? You always have to tap dance and sing for your supper. Whenever you get a job here, you have to prove it. But she was just one of those special, rare, lovely human beings who recognized who you were, what you brought, and it was good enough for her.
That is amazing. And I must, like, Andrea Romano, just to speak to her, like you said, yeah, is a legend, and she's been in stuff like Avatar and done all the casting for a ton of the DC stuff. And just hearing so many stories about her is just really heartwarming to hear, because, like you said, a lot of actors have to deal with a lot of directors who are like rude and mean, or just kind of like have a vision for this thing. And of course she has her vision, but she's so nice about it and just directs, like she directs you. I mean, she's a director. She's pushing you into what she wants and just really helps form these amazing performances. I mean, it shows like everything she's touched is just pure gold, and that exudes because of how nice she is to the cast and how supportive she is to them. And that just makes for all around an amazing project. I honestly, in my honest opinion, I don't think there's a bad Andrea Romano project because of the way she treats people. Yeah. That's how I feel. And it's just amazing hearing those stories. I mean, like I said, everything she shuts is almost legendary. I mean, Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Justice League, Avatar, amazing.
Tiny Tots even, and stuff like that, you know.
Right.
The most important, she was definitely not weak. She definitely had very strong opinions about how this is going to end up. But she understood that the most important relationship as far as performance goes was to make sure the actors were comfortable. As comfortable as you could possibly be, and relaxed and ready to work, and know that you are valued to be there. And then she would steer you right into the exact moment that you for performance. She would steer you right into the exact thing she was looking for. And if she wasn't getting it, she would say, "Nope, this way. Do it. Boom. Beautiful. Moving on." That's the way she was.
I love that. DC is a massive franchise, but now we're gonna get into a big franchise. Call of Duty. Recently, you were just in Call of Duty Cold War, and now Russell Adler is just a phenomenally written character. So good. Just I love that character a ton in the new Call of Duty. And what's crazy is, and I'm not the only fan who shares this opinion, but it feels like Adler's been around since the very beginning. Like the fans have really embraced this character for the most part. I mean, of course, the ending has turned some people ways, but for the most part, people really love and enjoy this character, and they're really putting him up there, right, with a Soap McIntosh, or like a Ghost, or a Gaz, or even a Frank Woods. They're really putting him up there because of just the way he's written and just his swagger. I remember one line was the police chief. He was like, I hope you brought an army, and Adler was like, we brought enough. And he was just like so like knew what he was about, and had I love that line so much. I think that's one of my favorite lines that you delivered, was just, you brought enough. And then you just go and you're like, come on, Mason, we got to get Woods. And then, oh God, I love that scene so much.
Yeah,
that's feel personally for you to have a character that has been embraced so quickly.
Couldn't be more pleased, obviously. The fans who've reached out to me have been just nothing but supportive. I don't. A lot of times voice actors or video game performers in particular will have to put up with a lot of feedback, a lot of shit from people, fans that they're very opinionated and they'll let you know. But all I've received is a wave of love, and I just really appreciate it. There's the occasional, dude, why'd you kill me? But that's about as much as I get. It's like, why'd you do that to me, man? I stuck by you the entire time, and what? Really? That's what I get? Thanks, man. But that's the extent of the negative part of it. It's been wonderful. And thanks to Bob Love, who originally cast me. He was the main writer and the creator of that story. He had about halfway through shooting Call of Duty, he moved on. He left the company, and boy, he left a big hole as far as us actors were concerned, because he was our biggest cheerleader. And he helped me really simplify and help me find Adler, and make sure that he was more of a Steve McQueen or more of a Robert Redford or more of a Brad Pitt than some sort of a badass, brash kind of person, right? He's got to be, like you said, I love the word swagger, but it's often overused, and it's difficult for actors to use that word and really come up with something. So we have to be more specific, and he helped me find that guy. So hats off to him too.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad that you've had a lot of supportive people that have helped you really find these characters, and it really helps you make amazing characters that you've given so much time and talent, and it really exudes off of every character you've done, from Atrocitus to even you doing the mocap for Master Chief. It's just really amazing to see you have people who really help you and push you in the right direction to make characters that will last generations. So it's
that's the one thing people have to remember, is that are starting out. The one thing people have to remember, this is not about you as an actor. It's not about you. It's a collaborative process, and in the best sense, in the biggest sense of the word. There's a lot of people that go into the making of any character, from the animation to the voiceover directors to the producers, the story writers. Man, it's so highly collaborative. It's not, and it's also good news for the actor too, because that whole weight isn't just on our shoulders. We get to reach out and say, I'm having a little trouble with this. I'm struggling with this scene. Can you fill me in a little bit more? Like what's the backstory behind why I'm saying this or doing this or moving from here to there? And yeah, it's a collaborative process in the best sense.
That's great. So I just want to touch upon this a little bit, because I'm very interested in how COVID has affected you guys. So obviously Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War was recorded in the middle of the pandemic, and you guys had to move. I mean, I was watching, I think it was a Washington Post video where you were talking about how, you had to stop doing mocap and go home and do all that stuff because of COVID. So how have you, since the beginning of the pandemic, how have you adjusted to COVID era voice acting? Do you enjoy it more? Do you miss going to the studio? What's it like for you?
Oh, I miss it. Yeah, I miss doing motion capture. We're coming back though, more and more these days. They're starting to cast more upcoming motion capture stuff. So it looks like we'll be able to open up again. But it's a double-edged sword. I was debating whether or not to drop this name, but I was on the golf range the other day, and Kyle Chandler was there. So we were talking about it, and I said, the best thing about it is I can get up in the morning, grab my coffee in my underwear, go into the booth, and I can just fire off some work, and as long as you're not on Zoom, and work. And he goes, yeah, that is great. But the worst part of it is, you're in your own house, you're drinking your coffee in your underwear, and you're performing. And what he meant by that was, you don't get to go out and meet and have this warm, collaborative relationship that we actors love. And so he's right. And so that's the part I miss. I don't miss the traffic, but and it's nice to work in your own home and know that your setup is good enough to be a professional grade studio. It's just comforting that way, that you can keep making a living. A lot of people, as we know, a lot of people couldn't work. Well, we found a way to keep it going.
With you actors not being able to meet one another as much as you were able to, that's one thing I want to do, is I want to be able to meet you guys in person. I want to say hello. I want to get bounce off of energy with you guys. And one of my fears is that even when COVID is over, whenever that is, dear God, with all these variants, but will you guys be able to meet one another, or will Zoom and, you know, what's that other? Source Connect. Yeah, that one. Will that be the mainstay, and will studios kind of be a thing in the past? You know, will you guys not be able to?
Yeah, I think hopefully it'll be up to us. Hopefully we'll still have the choice. Right now, I'm doing 2 projects. One that's coming out this year, and one that's going to be a couple of years yet. But I have that option. I can do it from here, or I can go in. And I'm choosing to go in every time I can, because I love working with engineers. Here's what I love. I'm an actor. I grew up on the stage, as we spoke about before. I love having a person opposite me on the other side of the glass that I can perform for. Not just the ones in my head, in the earphones, the producers and the voice directors and stuff, which is great. It's fine. I'm glad to have them there. But I like to look look in somebody's eyes when I'm performing, or feel, or it's out of the corner of my eye, see them laughing, or see them going like, I love that instant feedback of performing. So hopefully we'll still have a choice. We do right now. We have to jump through a couple of hoops. We have to get our temperature taken, fill out questionnaires and stuff. But I choose to go in every moment I can.
That's God awesome. To go more into Adler, how did you pick that voice?
Again, with help from Bob Love. I couldn't just be me, because I'm, as you can tell, I'm a little more animated, a little more expressive, a little more, I don't know, un-Adler-like in real life. And so we had to really simplify, really bring it down, really find my swag, really be cool, really find whatever version of that swag was for me. And when I would veer away from it, when I'd start to raise the pitch of my voice or something, or get into more of a Bruce kind of reaction, he would go, no, Adler. All right, Bob, that's fine. Fuck off.
I love Adler's just characteristics, and like you said, he's just so sure of himself. And another scene I remember was between you and Adler and Hudson, and Frank had just like gave him a bloody nose, and Hudson was like, well, this wouldn't be an issue if you didn't do this, that, and the third. And he was like, careful, Hudson, or I won't stop Frank next time. I was like, yeah.
That's a cool scene. We did that on the mocap stage. That was a cool scene. That was when we were still together. We only did, I think we only did 3 or 4 days. Just a handful of sessions together on the mocap stage. That was one of them. And it was so cool because all of us were there together, and we got to block it all out. And it was like doing a play. It was fantastic. I love that stuff. And so you play with it. And PL is amazing. Plays Hudson.
Yeah.
He's one of those rare comedic mimic talents that is a strong actor.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen a ton of the impressions that he's done, and he's really good at those.
Really good. Like spot on good. Like you can't tell the difference. He does a Jeff Goldblum. You swear you're talking to Jeff Goldblum.
Yes! Oh, I've listened to that one too. Of course, with each Cold War season, they have a new drop, because season 1, season 2, there's 6 seasons, and they add new scenes all the time. Of course, more recently with Adler, they had the Numbers event, where it's kind of like dealing with the programming and stuff like that. My question is, did you do those prior to COVID, or did you have to, like, how did that work with all the newer scenes that they added?
That was throughout COVID. So every couple months or something, we would do a session, either in the studio or from here. Most of all of the call outs, and most of the barks and the call outs and And the generic stuff that you hear throughout the game, we're done right from here, from my place. But when it came time for Warzone and some cinematic stuff, I would try to go into the studio, like I said, for that reason, get more energy into it, just like feel more alive in the moment, like I'm actually there.
Did you do mocap with like, because I know for the recent season, it was between you and Stitch. He had a gun to his head and stuff. Did you do mocap for that?
Nope. Well, we're unable to. Yeah, I didn't, but they were at Raven Studios. I know the people that did. They sort of did it for us, and one in particular, a guy named Jeff there. He also had a hand along with Bob in helping me. He sort of runs the mocap stage in Wisconsin at Raven Studios, and we went there to rehearse some stuff and do some weapons training and stuff like that. And Jeff is the one that helped me find Adler's walk, actually, which is different than mine. You know, it's funny too, because we started doing some of the mocap, and we got feedback from Activision like, Bruce has got kind of a bounce in his step. I don't think Adler would have a bounce in his step. He's more of a badass. You have to like help him settle into the lower center of gravity that Adler would have. And so that's the kind of detail that you really need to hone in on and get perfect if you're going to finalize a performance like that. And so Jeff is one of those guys. Sorry about the long story again, but he was the one that was, since he did help me with Adler, he was the one that did a lot of that stuff for Warzone back at Raven in Wisconsin. He was doing, because they're in an enclosed environment, they're in a safe situation, and they get tested every day. And so he would go to work every day and do not only Adler's stuff, but a lot of the battle stuff. And he would be the mocap guy, the go-to mocap guy for Raven while they were producing all this stuff for the animators.
There's clearly a ton more that they could do with this character, because they had left this kind of cliffhanger. Kind of. Have you seen the most recent season ending?
I haven't seen any of it. I'm sorry. I don't even have an Xbox. I'm trying to find one. I've never played the games that I do.
It's not a big game, right? I see.
No, so I haven't actually sat through and watched any of it. I've seen some clips and stuff when people post it.
Where is it? I just had it on me, because I can. Here it is. So I could show you. It's kind of like it'll look very bad, but I could show you a clip of what it is. But the season ended with Adler putting a gun to Stitch's head and him having to make a decision about the future. And then there's a bunch of lines where he's like hinting at a potential.
Yes, I know what you're talking about now. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I remember doing the scene.
Okay, is this on? It should be on. Okay, but basically what I wanted to ask is, since there's more they could do with this character and the whole Call of Duty franchise as a whole, is there something you would like to see in a potential sequel?
No, not specifically. I just want to continue playing Adler. I could play him anywhere. I could play him in a garage. I just want to see more of them going through Europe. I don't know what it would be if they get into a sequel, like where it would be post all this nuclear weapon stuff. But I just want more story. I just want to keep going. And especially with Sims and with Woods and with all those guys, man, it's great stuff. Park, oh my God, she was so great. Lily.
Absolutely, and I want more with this character too. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Adler, one of my favorite Call of Duty characters of all time, and your performance made that character even better. So hats off to you, man, as you do this role. And Adler, just, I don't know, is there a specific characteristic that you think makes Adler so loved by many fans?
I think that I think you can get a sense that he does, that even though he's a man of essentially few words, I think you can feel that he cares about his team. His team is the most important thing in the world to him. And I think I don't know. I think that's, and I think, I mean, a lot of times you can hear that from characters that have brash voices, like Drill Sergeant, more of a F you to your face, that kind of guy. Sometimes you can get that from them. They only do it out of tough love. But I think Adler, I don't know. There's something about him that people sense that he really has a big heart in there somewhere.
Absolutely. Real quick, I want to touch upon Halo Infinite that just released. Before I ask my question about you playing Master Chief, congratulations, man, on the release of that. Like, that is a huge thing. People are loving Halo. I'm seeing positive reviews for Halo. Some things critiquing the game a tad, but for the most part, people are loving the heck out of this game. So, really, congratulations to you. I mean, it really blew out expectations for a lot of people, because a lot of people were expecting like to love Battlefield and Call of Duty, but no, Halo is like really killing those two titles. So congratulations to you and everyone involved with that amazing project. I don't have an Xbox, so actually, no, I do. I could play Halo at some point because I love Halo. My little brother loves the Halo video game so much. So for the mocap for Master Chief, what does that entail? Like, what do? Do you read the lines, or do you just like move around and do basic stuff like saying grenade out or stuff like that? Like, what's the extent that you go to doing it?
Well, thank you for the compliment. It's a huge, I think it's a huge relief for all of us that it's being so well received. It's because it's been quite some time since Halo 5. And so a lot of work, God bless them, the company 343, a lot of them, so much work went into this, and there was a lot on the line. So we really appreciate all of that that's coming back to them. Well, I'll say to them, because I'm really, in the scheme of things, I'm such a small portion of all the work that went into it. So hats off to them. I do the full performance as Chief. I say every line that Steve says. And I always work with Jen, with Cortana, or now the weapon. So I work face to face with all the actors on the mocap stage, and that I couldn't do it without that. I don't think there's no way it would be the same without that, because back when I was hired for Halo 4, I was hired specifically because I'm an experienced actor and because they wanted John to go through all these new deeply emotional storylines, especially in 4. And so they wanted to take him down that road and in that direction. So they needed to hire somebody that could bring it. And fortunately, I was the guy that they chose. And so I was able to explore those things. So it was imperative that I do the scene from start to finish with everything. I sit down and I work through every moment, doing all my homework before I shoot it. I write down all the reasons he's going here, going there, saying this, doing that, the relationship with Cortana, the relationship with the reasons that he's going after these villains and stuff, and who the man is himself, the fact that he puts humanity above any of his own personal regard. He's got all the power in the world. He's the most powerful character in that part of the universe. But he does it for good. He's always thinking about people other than himself, in particular humans. You know, he knows the fragility of humanity, and so whatever he can do to help save them, that's what he does. And it's to me, that's just the most admirable thing you can do with power.
I would have loved for you to, man, because I know they just announced a Halo show. I would love for you to like been the guy who does it, because you kind of have that sound of Steven a little bit, just a little bit. I really
when I work, I go down there, Cortana, show me the waypoint. You know, I get as close to Steve as I can. I can't do Steve, but I get as much essence as I can drum up. And in fact, he's been on the stage before. It's the first time I worked with him on stage. He came up to Seattle, where we shot all of this, and he was on stage one day and sat in a chair and watched us do all the mocap. And I went over and I said, "You sure you don't want to do this?" And he goes, "No, I can't. You're great. You do what you do."
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm just again, just congratulations on Halo and what you're going to continue to do. I know you have a interview coming up soon with I think Dan Allen, so you're going to go more into that with him. So
Yeah.
enjoy that, great guy. So I know you're going to go more in depth there. So yeah, just congratulations to Halo. But now we're going to get into the fun part of my interviews. I like to call Weird and Wacky. It's where you have 1 minute to answer a series of weird and random questions.
Oh God.
No one has gotten to a record of 15 questions, although the current championship title holder is Simon Norfleet with a record of 14 questions answered. Do you think you could beat Simon and get the championship title?
Probably not.
Okay.
I'm just gonna be flat out on it. Oh wait, go ahead.
All right.
So what did you say? I have a minute? What I have?
Yeah, but minute to answer a series of random questions as
All right.
fast as you can. It could be one word. It could be full sentence. Just go. Go back. All right. I'm going to start the timer in 3, 2, 1. Worst food. Worst food.
Broccoli.
Least favorite TV show.
Porn.
Dumbest thing you've done recently.
When I've seen recently? Oh God. Lost in Space.
Favorite musician.
Gosh. Oh, there's so many. Oh, crap. I don't know. Bruce Springsteen. I'll just say that just generically.
Favorite album cover.
Pink Floyd, The Wall. No, Pink Floyd. Sorry, Dark Side of the Moon.
Dumbest thing you've done as a kid.
Oh, God. Yell at my sister.
Favorite chore growing up.
Favorite chore?
Mm-hmm.
Feeding the dog.
Favorite animal.
I'll stick in the same memory. Cowl.
Ah, dang. Bruce.
That was horrible. That was horrible. What, I get 6?
No, you got 8. You're good. You got 8. You're good. Didn't beat Simon quite, but hopefully next time when I bring you off your next big title, you'll be able to beat that record. But now I'm going to transition to my final question. And before I ask you, I just want to say thank you so much, Bruce, for taking time out of your day to come speak with me. I know it's really early where you're at, and I truly appreciate it. I've had so much fun getting to talk to you about your roles and just getting to know more about you as a person. It's been a ton of fun. So thank you so much.
It was. I appreciate you too.
Thank you. My final question to you is, if you were given a mic and the entire world can hear you, what would your current message to the world be? Obviously, we're still living in a global pandemic. Laws are being changed. There's a ton of uncertainty going on around the world. What would you say to people just to give them sort of a sense of hope?
Look to these characters that I've so fortunately have gotten to play with gratitude. Look to Chief, look to Batman, look to Adler. These characters are loved because, like I touched on before, they have all the power in the world and they choose to think of others first. And I think that our leaders could really watch that, ingest that, and take it to heart. I know it sounds corny, but any one of those characters I just mentioned could have taken all their power and been selfish with it. Chief could go start his own planet. He could be a dictator of his own planet. Batman could do the same thing. He could, well, he does have a dark side, but he chooses to save people that are less fortunate than him and don't have the ability to protect themselves. So those that have that power and the elected position, the elected leaders that we put in position, could look to that and use that as an example for good.
I completely agree with that. We need more compassion. We need more care and understanding. Heavy on the understanding. There's so much going on. There's so much we hear on the news and seeing. There's just a ton of information flying at us all the time. And it's just really important to have that understanding. So just one thing I would to add on to that was just be understanding. Just try to understand where the other man is coming from and just try and break it down as much as you can. And that's all I got.
And that comes from listening. Just listen.
Just listen. All right, Bruce. Well, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to promote or plug before we head off?
I wish I could, but I can't say. There's a lot I can't say, so more coming, but that's where I have to leave it.
Awesome. Well, before we leave, can I get a shout out in the voice of Adler?
Oh, I love doing your show, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Now go kick some ass.
Clipping that. Someone clip that for me right now. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I will see you guys next week for my next big interview. Peace and love, everyone.
Cheers.